Welcome to the Dreams Are Real podcast, where we aim to ignite the fire that allows you to unleash your greatest potential. I'm your host, Dan McPherson, and I'm on a mission to help you own your story on the way to building your ideal life. The first step toward achieving your dreams is to overcome the momentum of zero. Take a step and let that motion dispel the emotions of fear, worry, or self-doubt. No matter where you are in your life or career, only you can make that choice. The good news, you've got this. Why? Because dreams are real. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Dreams Are Real podcast. I'm your host, Dan McPherson, and today is a fantastic day. Why? Because I have one of the best storytellers on the planet, a good friend of mine, an amazing character, and you'll see what I mean as we get into talking about this, and a wonderful entrepreneur with a heart of gold with me, Fabio Aromatici. How did I do, Fabio?
And you got it right. Thank you so much, Dan, for having me here. Well, after this presentation, I'm kind of intimidated, but I'll try to do my best to keep up with these premises.
I appreciate it. Fabio is a friend of mine that I met when we were traveling in Asia earlier this year. I was compelled, as so many are, to connect and be closer with him. I learned a lot of his story, and I'm excited for a chance for him to share it with you today. And speaking of that, Fabio, why don't we start going way back? Where does the world of Fabio begin? What is your personal origin story? Where do you come from?
Well, first of all, I come from Italy, just in case you haven't guessed it, either from the accent or the name. Born and raised in the country, and actually raised in a very small town. Name is Pesaro, which is on the coast. And I grew up by myself in the sense that I only had one mom. My mother lost my dad when I was very young. And so I grew up with no siblings. And that was kind of tough because I wasn't even born in that city. I moved there when I was 4. So brand new city, the new kid on the block. I knew nobody. And back then, we are in the mid of the 60s in a small town of conservative Italy. So it wasn't kind of easy in the very beginning because they always ask you, who's your brother? Who's your dad? Do you have cousins here? And, it was basically me, a one-man show or a one-boy show. So it wasn't easy in the very beginning, but, always been kind of open to people and to new situations. So I guess this is where it all begins, if you want an origin story. 4-year-old, just catapulted in a new world. We had some friends, of course, to start with, but, new city, new people, even a new dialect, because in Italy, as you know, in every single city, yes, there is the national language, but then you have a very strong dialect. So you need to learn the language. And this is where it all began because my mom was working very hard and she put me in after school program. And at 7, one of the programs was English, which was probably the most relevant topic I ever learned in my life, because back then, as I said, in the middle of Italy, in the mid of the 60s, not many kids of 7-year-old were studying English. And that changed my life. So if you want the origin story, this is about it.
So you say that changed your life. How did that change your life?
Well, it did first of all, on a cultural level, because I was very proficient. I have to be modest, but I was very proficient even at that age because I was never shy. So most of my friends were trying to learn English with an Italian pronunciation because they were afraid that being too much into the language would, let other people make fun of them. And I couldn't care less. So I gave myself to the language. We had a very good looking young teacher, and it was the time of the miniskirts. She was coming from England, blonde, blue-eyed, and I was studying at the nuns, so you can imagine there was kind of a riot to have her there. And Susan was also sitting on the desk, which was breaking the rules. It was very interesting in the environment, and it changed my life on a cultural level because I was able to learn the lyrics of songs, first of all, because a lot of the Italians are singing like blah, 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 when they don't know the words. And I was actually able to understand what the songs were about, and that was the first start. And then the movies, the audio cassettes back then, because we're talking about prehistory, and then people. Because I grew up on the ocean, there were a lot of foreigners coming down on summertime, mainly from Germany, Austria, Northern Europe. And I was probably the only boy at 13 or 14 to be fluent in English back then. And that was a major advantage to get the girls, because I was always the one to get the group together to communicate. So I used to get first pick. That was a big motivation when you're a teenager to even own the principle of the English language. But I was also very surprised to find out that the vast majority of the foreigners were more or less fluent in English, while not many Italians my age were. And from then it was a personal change, because of course I got to meet people, I got to travel, and later on in life it was an advantage for work. On a professional level I did many things, but the common trait was that I was always working at international level. So basically English was a passepartout, or a way to open up worlds for me on so many levels.
So when you were young and you were learning English, you were in this new place, what were you thinking about other than the girls? We got that. What were your dreams? What if you looked forward and said, I want to do this in the world, and you think back to your young self, what were you looking at?
Well, I wanted to leave the small town. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to meet people from other countries, and I wanted to live in other countries as well, but also working. Since I was very young, probably I was 14, 15, always had that in mind. I want to work in an international environment, but unfortunately, the small town of Pesaro, which is very nice, is very cute, where life is very easy, there's lots of dolce vita, we don't get a lot of international influence other than the tourists that come to the city. So I have to move somewhere else. And right after college, I went to law school. So my background is legal. I moved and I went to Milano, the big city of Italy, without knowing anybody, which for the States might be very common, but Italy, you always have to have a connection. You have to know somebody, you have to have a cousin or a friend. And I just went there with a very small valise and a lot of dreams. And I started looking for a job.
Wow. So just your clothes and looking for a job. So what is it that pushed you into law school? I think that's interesting. Knowing what I know about you, and I've heard you say before that you went to law school. This is what you did. How did that fit into the whole picture?
It sounded at the time like the most flexible course of studies that would give me a pan of solution, a pan of opportunities that probably other majors wouldn't have given to me. And I also had few friends that were also joining college in the same kind of studies, so that was also helpful. And I think that in general, as I said before, I grew up in a small town with a strong mother in a Catholic environment. So going by the rules was probably, with the nuns in school as well. So going by the rules was definitely a must back then. And
back
I was
then,
very
has that
much
changed a little?
Oh yeah. But you have to learn the rules and practice the rules before you break them. You cannot break them if you don't know what the rules are. And therefore, I decided first to go for a career as a magistrate, and then it turned into lawyer. And then finally, my first job, the real job I landed, was corporate lawyer with a European association in Milan of medical device manufacturers that was working together with the European Union. So pretty tough and cool job at the very beginning. So instead of interpreting the law, I was contributing to making laws, European laws. So the medical device directive of European legislation is also a little bit of Fabio in the making.
A little bit of Fabio included in the law. I love it.
Yes.
So from there, where did you go? And from being a lawyer, what was next?
From a corporate lawyer, becoming a manager. Because remember that here we are in the mid-'80s, second half of the '80s. So the yuppies were very popular in Italy as well. So to become rich, have a great watch and a great car, lots of movies also coming from the States. So that was the big dream. So if you're talking about dreams, very simple back then. Go out there, make money, become important, be powerful, and prove your worth. Also because coming from a small town again and going to the big city, there was always a big prejudice. And although you guys might see Italy as very small from all around the world, there are divisions between the north and the center and the south. So this boy or young man coming from the center, not knowing anybody, it wasn't really easy back then. There was a bit of discrimination, I have to say. So the more usually I receive discrimination, the more I want to prove people wrong. And yeah, I did, because bit by bit, I changed several jobs, which also, this is not probably the common path in Italy until recent years. So now we're talking mid-90s here. I changed several jobs. I moved to the States for a couple of years. I worked with a legal firm in New Haven, Connecticut. Then I came back. I leveraged on that experience, went back to Milano again, and finally I made it up to several corporate ladders. I mostly worked with industry associations, with companies, and my last job in Milano was international director of the Milan Exhibition Center, and I was responsible for 550 people in 6 branch offices around the world. But then it got out of hand because I was traveling all the time. And so I got my dream, but maybe it was a bit too much of a dream, because I knew much better about restaurants in Moscow or in Sao Paulo in Brazil than downstairs from my house in Milano. And unfortunately, I neglected a little bit, because in the meanwhile I got married, and I neglected my wife a little bit. So this is a little bit of a regret that I had about those times. But once you're caught in the mechanism of corporations, you can't say no, especially if you're at a very high level. Every moment of your life is scheduled. You think you might be running the show, but it's mostly your assistant who's running the show, because she has your schedule. And you are fighting not just to create value for your company, but also you're fighting to defend yourself from others who want a piece of the pie, or they want your position. I work in fashion in Milan, so you can imagine how competitive this might be. I met the Versace, I met the Armani, all the big names, but I'm not doing name dropping. What I want to say is that it is very difficult to work in that environment. It's extremely competitive, and although it's nice and glittering from the outside, from the inside is a different story, because people are investing in every job, but in fashion in particular, it's so much about who they are. Not just the creativity, but think about the companies. They all carry the last name of the founder or the designer. So when you criticize their clothes, you criticize them, and they don't take it lightly.
That must have been a difficult environment to step in. Is there a lesson that you pulled from there that maybe pushed you forward a little bit, or was it more just, I don't want to be like that?
I wish I could tell you something you never heard before, but I think I realized it was really the journey and not the destination. I enjoy myself very much getting up there, whatever up there means. It means a lot of things for many people, but to learn, to meet other fantastic people, being able to create projects, travel around the world. That was the fun stuff. Once you get in a position of power, everything shifts. Most of your energy is in making sure that your team is doing okay, making sure that your clients or constituency are happy. And also you have to defend yourself from professional and personal attacks, because Milano is a small city, probably 1 million people, give or take. And fashion world is based a lot on gossips. And so I got to know a lot of the dirty secrets of a lot of people, and probably they got to know my own, not so dirty, but still secrets. And if people will have a chance, they will use it against you. So it was a combination of two. I reached and I proved myself and others that I could make it. I realized that the top of the mountain is not as cool as you think it might be. And I didn't want to become like most of the people around me. Not to be, hopefully I never became like them, but I was getting closer because the system doesn't allow you to change it. It does change you if you want to stay in power. And I've seen, especially men, more than women. Women are smarter. They find a way to adjust in a better way to it and to find a better balance between family and work. Men, most men, not all of them, but most men are so addicted to power that even when they retire, even when they get fired, they still navigate around the world that they used to be part of it because so much of the social status revolves around their business cards. And I didn't want to be like that. I proven myself to myself and others. I made quite a good amount of money. That's going to be important for the next step because not being too afraid of non-meeting ends doesn't help creativity. So you need to have a little cushion to fall upon. But then I realized I wanted more freedom, and freedom, I think, is the key word in terms of time, in terms of creativity, and in terms of people to deal with. And then I don't know if you are familiar with the law of attraction, but the universe came towards me, and my wife, who used to be a diplomat for Austria, and she had to quit her job to move over to Milan and join me, was offered to join again the Austrian government and go abroad. And so part of it because I felt obliged to reciprocate what she did for me, but mostly because it was a great opportunity to experiment in a relatively safe environment, a new life. And so I went back to the CEO of Fiera Milano, the Italian, the Milanese exhibition center, and I said, I'm leaving. And he couldn't believe because I was at the top of my game. I was making a lot of money. We had a lot of projects, but I was able to say, I quit. And from then, the next part of my life, or my new life started, because a few months later, we were in Vienna, in Austria. And for the first time in my adult life, I didn't have a job. And, you know, I was a workaholic. I was working weekends and Christmas Eve and very long days. So for me, it was in the very beginning a relief. And after a couple of weeks, it was a shocker. What am I going to do now? And also my German back then, not that now it's fantastic, but back then it was very, very basic. So it was difficult for me in the very beginning. And this is where my new life began.
That's amazing. And I recognize the pattern that we see with so many of the entrepreneurs I speak with, that they have a dream when they're younger, they go, they work, often becoming workaholics and just driving forward, and then finally recognize that isn't what they want and have the courage to jump off the cliff. Did it feel like courage at that point, or did it just feel like what you needed to do?
I think it was a combination of both, but also with a very good parachute, in the sense that I had set aside enough money to experiment a little bit. And, you know, I was going in a very nice environment because, of course, through my wife, I was able to get in touch with people and situations which were extremely interesting to me. And so I started my first company at the young age of 53. So it's never 54, actually. It's never too late. That's the message I want to give. A lot of people think that you have to be 20 something to start your company. Not necessarily. You can, but you can do also something different. I think we live then in a wonderful time when, for the first time in the Western culture, we are able to live more than one life. I remember the previous generation in Italy, but maybe not in the States, but in Europe at least. You would go to school, you would find a job, you would get married, you would move to another house, you would have children, you would work all your life, you would have grandchildren, then retire. And that was about it. It was like a linear economy in that situation, or a linear life. Now we live circular lives where sometimes we decide it, sometimes we don't. We get a divorce, we get a new partner, a new wife. Our children might go someplace, and not that we lose them, but we can lose touch with them. We change the city, we change the job, we change ourselves. We give ourselves a new body if we want to, get in great shape. I think it's for the first time in human history on this side of the world, we are allowed to be whatever we want to be, whenever we want to be, given the respect for others and not to hurt other people around us. While before we were going on tracks that were preordinate. And so this is scary for some people, and for me, it's absolutely exciting. So that was a combination. I was scared, yeah, to an extent, but I was mostly excited to start a new life.
I get the excitement, and I love it as I travel, and I know you do the same. We speak with so many people who are able to take advantage of opportunities regardless of age, regardless of where they are in the world. Part of it's technology enabled, part of it's a more open mind, part of it is opportunities that have just changed and shaped, and part of it is a different level of innovation.
But there is something I want to say to everybody. A lot of people play with the idea of changing, and they never do. I have a lot of friends. One of my best friends is always like, maybe I could have, I should have. Yes, lots of great ideas, but he never executed them. There is one moment when you're on the trampoline and there's nobody else around you, and there's the pool, which is far, far down, and you have to decide. And at that moment, there's no significant other, there's no family, there's nothing, no mentor, nobody else that can help you. You either jump or you don't. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's not, but you have to do it. So I think also there's a lot of talking about change around the world. Not as many people who talk do actually change.
I agree completely. For me, in my own journey, one of the things that I faced is that I wanted to change, but as you say, I didn't. Finally, I got to a spot where it sunk into my soul, the realization that either I had to change or admit that I wasn't going to. And I wasn't the type of person that was going to admit that I wouldn't, so I jumped off the cliff. And I recognized that moment. But I also work with so many who have a hard time stepping off of that, especially when they might be building the parachute on the way down rather than already having one nicely folded.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've seen many. But also, I found the other way around. A lot of people that feel trapped in their world, in their lives, and they suffer from it. But sometimes they hide behind the many responsibilities they might have, behind what they think their limitations are, and they just bit by bit they fade their inner lights. And so I always thought, being a Catholic, I always remember the parable of the talents. That doesn't matter if you got 2, 4, or 6, you got to do something with them, and you just can't dig a hole in the ground and hide them there. So I thought I had some talents, and I just wanted to see if outside the corporation they could produce anything, because you need to have talents to do a good job in the corporate world, but then you might need a different set of talents to be also successful, or let's say to enjoy yourself outside a corporation. Because for as many limitations you get, from time to time, I'm telling to myself, what have I done? Before I had 2 secretaries that would fix every problems for me. All I had to do was to call the guy at finance to get a second opinion on this. Or we could have, this project done in a moment because we had so much money to invest in it, and that wasn't a problem. And, working on your own, it's a different story. So I want to say those who are there on the trampoline, I don't like to say a cliff. I prefer the trampoline symbology.
I like the trampoline.
About to jump, think for a second what you are saying goodbye to, because that's the secret I want to tell everybody. Once you are out of the corporation, you will lose 95% of your contacts, because they don't care about you. They care about your business card. They care about who you are in that position. They care about what you can do for them, or what you could do for them in another situation. I'll do you a favor, you do me a favor. That's how it works. And it's not good nor bad. That's the way it is. A lot of people are very negative, saying, oh, this is not a real relationship. These are acquaintances. These are work relationships. And sometimes we make the mistakes to think that they are friends with a capital F. It happens, but it's the exception, not the majority of them. So I've lost over 90% of the hundreds of people I was, if not in daily, monthly contact with when I was working in Milano. And I accepted it. It is part of life. But I usually tend to focus on what I gain, not on what I lose. This is also very important, I think, for everybody who wants to do it on their own. Always try not to be positive, but look at what you have acquired. So now I get to meet fantastic people that before I could not. I can say no to clients if I want to, well, with a certain grain of salt. But if somebody's really been a jerk, can I say jerk on this podcast? If somebody is a jerk, I can say, sorry, we're too busy. Sorry, we can't match. Maybe we're not the right company for you, and walk away. Before I could not. So there's absolutely less money for the time being into this, but also I would like to make a consideration about money. Whenever I go around and I listen to speakers, and I have to say, sorry, Dan, especially from the US, it's always about 6 figures income, 7 figures income, 9 figures income. You're going to be rich overnight. I don't go for that. It's a lot of work when you're on your own. And yes, from time to time, there's a guy with a fantastic idea, and overnight he becomes a millionaire. But probably it's 1 per 10,000, 1 per million. I don't know. The rest is the only recipe I know. And the people around me that I value only have one recipe: work, 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 and be resilient, because there are going to be so many things in your small company, in your small activity that before you were aware of, but you didn't have to deal with it directly. And now you deal with everything, and they all come on you, and you have to be a very good juggler, and at the same time retain a certain percentage of your brain focus on your business, and in my case, creativity, which is even different from running a business, because creativity, although there are some techniques that might improve it, you don't snap your fingers and come up with a great page to write that, or theater play. You need a little bit of concentration, you need luck, you need to be in a good zone and good moment in your life, unlike when you are in a corporation where you have to be productive no matter what. So there are pros and cons.
For sure. And I hear the trade of people who may have seemed to be friends, but were really just contacts or acquaintances, as you say, and I've seen them fall away much the same, but you gain this freedom. I hear the trade of the 40 or 50 hour work week, and people say, I saw a meme the other day on Facebook that said if you're looking to escape the 40 or 50 hour work week by becoming an entrepreneur, you're correct. You will escape that. It's just not the direction you think you were going. You might there's a lot of work involved, but I also believe that if you're doing the work that moves you to your North Star, that moves you to your purpose in the world, that you're more likely to connect with it in a very different way. And you shared an example a bit ago that as you saw people become trapped in their work, I've seen this as well, that they almost become dim, they become faded. And I find that entrepreneurs, even though there's certainly plenty of struggle and lots of work to do, often are quite vibrant, and they're living maybe the life that they were intended. Do you feel now, having made the choices you are, that you're living the life that you should be?
Well, people who knew me when I was in Milano working for companies and saw just pictures of me on the internet said that I look younger. So I guess that there is a positive effect to it. I also think that there's a difference between enthusiasm and passion. Enthusiasm is like, it's going to help you in the short run. Maybe you have one project, or maybe you meet one person that you can build something with, and that's good. But passion is like that river that moves you every day, even here in the Philippines, because we haven't told anybody, but now I live in Manila, the Philippines, and we got 6 months a year when it rains a lot. And traffic is very complicated. So if you have to get up early in the morning and go to the client because it's raining and the city is flooded, and you don't know, it's going to take you 3 hours to get there for maybe 1 hour meeting and then to go back, and you still do it with a smile on your face because that's what you want to do, then you struck gold. Even if you have to dig deeper to get real gold out of it.
That makes a lot of sense. As you think about what you're doing now, you're doing some very different things than you were. Someone comes up to you and they say, Fabio, what do you do? How do you respond?
That's a very embarrassing question, I have to say, especially when not so much people that I met once, but people that I meet in the corporate world now, especially through my wife. With the embassy, we go to several of these events, and there are these guys, especially men. Women understand. Women tend to understand much better. Men have a hard time, especially because now my wife is the important person in the couple, in the sense that, she's got the business card and she's a diplomat and she meets the important people, the politicians, and I'm the funny guy, the Italian funny guy who tells stories. So they quite don't understand. And I don't feel like telling them, hey, look, I have a past. I've been in much more stressful situation that you are right now, you can never think of. So sometimes I like to play stupid. It's easier, especially with an Italian guy. You get away with a lot of stuff. You say a couple of funny things, they laugh, and you are already in that group of comedian, funny people, dolce vita. But if I feel like seriously like talking, I guess the best way to describe my activities now is I tell stories. And not so much storytelling per se, because storytelling already has a very clear definition these days when it comes to marketing, when it comes to advertising. It's not a science yet, but it's getting close to it. What I do is so complex because 2 weeks ago, a group of game developers from my hometown called me, and they want me to write the storyboard for a video game that is taking place in an historical moment in my hometown. I don't know how familiar you are with classical music, but I come from the city of Gioacchino Rossini, il Barbieri di Siviglia, Figaro qua, Figaro là, and therefore he was he was a rock star back then. And he had kings that wanted, the King George in England wanted to sing a duet with him. And whenever he went to Paris, he had all the important people coming after him. So I did some research, and therefore they asked me to write a story play which is accurate, historically speaking. Or I write for the theater, or I write speeches still, and there's a part of storytelling, or I write articles for individuals and companies. And a story is in everything we do these days. It's in the narrative of the media. It's in whatever advertisement we look on television. It's on the TV series that you look at in the evening, or it's now you talk to your children. You tell them a story all the time. And if you think about it, even dreams are nothing but a story. The way we remember dreams is just a sequence of events, and this is just a story. So I was thinking about Shakespeare's that we say we are made of the same matter of dreams. But dreams are made of stories. So we are, after all, made of stories. So this is what I do. I tell stories.
I think that is fantastic. That's how I met you originally, was connecting and enjoying one of the programs or one of the, how would you describe Story Nights? I suppose.
Story Nights is, thank you for the question. I like that very much. It's an international network. Actually, I got in contact with when I was living in Vienna, and I was the first storyteller in the first event of Story Nights Vienna. And once I moved away from Vienna, they asked me to start the chapter here in Manila. And this is a community of expats and locals. We are trying to create bridges because there are distances and differences everywhere in the world, but even more so here in the Philippines, between the expats and the Filipinos, even those who work in the same office environment. And so regardless of your background, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your religion, everyone is welcome. We decide to focus on one particular topic for the evening. It could be freedom. It's a large topic, but then it's up to you, the interpretation. Life is a journey, Family Matters, 50 Shades of Love, you name it. The idea is that people, through sharing stories, are able to bond because we all react as human beings in the same ways to certain situations. If you lose a loved one, if you get cancer, if you have to tell your parents you're gay, if your wife says goodbye, doesn't matter where you're from, inside you, you will feel the same things regardless of where you were born. And this is a way to create a very special environment for everybody to basically tell them you're okay. Maybe you were crying, maybe you have a breakdown. A lot of people told us very intimate stuff that never told their parents or their spouses, because we create an environment. I don't like the word safe space, but I'd say it's not a show where there is no stage and audience, where everybody is talking like friends. So we do little tricks to introduce to each other, to mingle before that. So people are not sitting down and expecting other people to perform for them. It's sharing. So in the end, we select some speakers before the beginning of the evening, but then in the end, there's always somebody who wants to say something. And those who say, no, I never spoke in public. No, I'm very shy, are the ones who are pushing harder at the end of the event so that they can tell their story. And so we open up Story Nights Manila, and right away, another chapter in Cebu, which is the second largest city of the Philippines. And now we are working to open a third one in Davao in the south. So this is storytelling. This is the power of storytelling.
Is there an opportunity to continue growing that throughout the world? For example, if someone in the audience says, wow, that's an amazing idea, and they want to learn more about it, we can link to it in the show notes. But also, are you looking to grow on a broader basis or more in a slow, controlled way like is described there?
This is what happened to me. I went to tell my story in Vienna, and 2 years later, I'm running the circus, I'd say, here in Manila. And the young woman who attended, her name is Rachel, who attended the first event in Manila. Now she's running the chapter in Cebu. So yes, we are, as long as you respect, there are some rules and some specificities that we have, because we are not just a bunch of friends sitting down and telling stories. There is an aim, there is a goal that we want to achieve. And also the stories have to be built in a certain way. So if anybody is interested, you can follow us in storynightsmanila.com.
Fantastic. And we will link to that in the store notes, or in the show notes rather. I was very honored by an opportunity to be able to share there with a group of people. It is a powerful experience, and it's something that I think should exist in chapters in as many cities in the world as it could. It is a needed medium and a welcome opportunity for sure. As you look forward, what are your goals now? What are your dreams as you consider these next steps? You're telling stories, you're doing things that you love. What are your hopes? What are you aiming for?
Making money, more money. No, I have to say, I always like to use the metaphor of Dr. Banner and the Hulk, because the Hulk is the executive that was very aggressive in Milano and that was always achieving his goals, making money for himself and for the company. Now Dr. Banner took over, and so he's doing his own things. He's more relaxed, easygoing. He's a bit afraid of the Hulk because he knows that the Hulk is still always there. But sometimes the Hulk is needed if he's controlled. And the Hulk for me is being able to turn what I like and what other people seem to like into monetization, which for a long time for me was a bad word. And now after I detox myself for a few times, it's becoming something that I would like to achieve. It's not that I wasn't making money, that I'm not making money. But for instance, the company I started in Vienna, and that was my first company at the age of 53, Secret Vienna. Secret Vienna was born just by accident, in the sense that I was bored. So I started going around the beautiful city of Vienna and taking pictures. I took a class, and because you acquire skills on the way. I took a class in photography, and so the pictures turned out to be pretty good. I studied the history of the city, and basically I was trying to cater to those who do not have time to love and learn about the city where they live in. I lived in Milano for 25 years. I knew nothing about the city because I was working all the time and I was traveling. When my mother and my friends were coming, yeah, this is the main cathedral, this is the castle, you want to shop, you go there. But I knew nothing about it, and it was a shame. So finally I had time, so I explored Vienna. I fell in love with it. It's a fantastic city. And I was trying to tell small stories in the form of posts on a Facebook page in the very beginning, not only to tourists, but also to the Viennese that were exactly in the same situation that I was in Milan. They were too busy going from point A from point B and never looking around, not knowing that in that building this happened. And in that square, it was a pivotal moment in history 300 years ago. And I found out that a lot of people cared about it. So before I knew it, I had a platform with Instagram, a website, the Facebook page with over 50,000 organic followers. For me, it was amazing.
Wow.
I never thought this could be possible in 7 months, 6 months. So this is where I said, well, where does it go from here? And the community of people I have created that was very proactive said, why don't we bring it offline and we go for tours in the city? And so then the Hulk came back, and he went for a marketing research, looking for cooperations. And there was a major limit in Vienna. You can only be a tour guide if you have a permit from the city. And to get that permit, you need to go to school for 3 years, and you have to take very serious exams in German. So wow. I could not be a tour guide. I knew that an American guy tried to do a liberal thing coming, and he was almost arrested because the other tour guide went to the police, and he got fined and also threatened to be arrested. So I needed to strike a deal with local guides, which I did. I found the people I wanted to, the younger ones, those who wanted to grow, those who wanted to have. Secret Vienna is about secrets of the city. It's not in your face. So it's about that small building nobody looks at, or that almost forgotten event, or secret societies, alchemists. And there was everything in that city for 2,000 years. A Roman emperor died in Vienna as well. Wow. So not a lot of people knew that. So I found the right people. I closed the contract. So the Hulk was useful. The lawyer was useful. The skills I gathered through my first life, they were not forgotten. And so that small company in a year became number 2 or 1, depending on the week, on 144 company on TripAdvisor for walking tours in the city.
Wow. Congratulations on that.
In 1 year. And then I wrote a book about the city. I was selling the book not only through Amazon. It's called Secret Vienna Stories, in case you're interested.
Oh, we are. And we'll link that in the show notes so that people can check that out.
Yeah, never miss an opportunity to sell. And so that book became part of the package I was selling together with the tours. So one thing piled up to the other. And then my wife got the notice, you got to move in 3 months. You got to go to the Philippines. That's the way it works with diplomats.
Wow.
So what am I going to do? It's impossible to manage a very small company that so much revolves around you if you're 11,000 kilometers away and it's about the city. So I found a young man from Israel that was studying in Vienna, and I sold him the company, and I'm still making pretty good revenues out of it for 1 more year. And he's now running it. The company is growing. It's much better structured than when I left it, because also he's very much into any digital gizmo. So if you want to go and have a look on secretvienna.com, it's a beautiful program now, running with plenty of activities, and I'm very proud of it, because that was my first company, it was my first baby. Before I was a manager or an executive, I never created something that said, this is who you are. And that's the real difference between being a top executive and a very micro, small, teeny tiny entrepreneur. You can say, this is my thing.
And then you can make a change and make a move. And was Secret Vienna where Fabio Jones was born? We can't pass away without some Fabio Jones.
Well, let's tell people who Fabio Jones is. Fabio Jones apparently is my traveling persona, and he is the older, not so fit brother of Indiana Jones. But Fabio Jones was basically born from Secret Vienna, in the sense that Secret Vienna revolves around the idea that everything is an adventure. And it is not the extreme things. It's how you relate to your environment, how you look at buildings, how you read about something, and then you try and imagine what happened. So it's in your eyes. And I guess Fabio Jones was always with me. Probably he was already the little boy coming from down when I was born, moving to Pesaro when I was 4. But when I was in the Philippines, I've been exposed to a lot of traveling bloggers, and all of them are, if they're men, they're super fit, they're very young, and they do all these extreme sports. But they're all the same. Sorry, guys. And the women are fantastic. They are very sexy, very young, beautiful, but they pose all the time in these very posh environments. And in the end, the message people are getting is, unless you are like us, you're not even entitled to travel. So I was catering to a different, not even niche. I think it's the majority of people who are not so fit, so young, and so extreme. But the message behind Fabio Jones and the videos that I do, and if you want to follow me on the Instagram, is Fabio Jones World of Adventure World, sorry. It's, if I can do it, you can do it too. I am 57, I am overweight, and I am just a simple guy. But I went water rafting, I went on a biplane in New Zealand, I went down rivers, and I swam with the sharks. I'm afraid of it, but I did it nonetheless. So I am trying to send a message out there that everybody can be an explorer, and an adventure is everywhere. And the funny thing is that last week I was interviewed not as Fabio Aromatici, but as Fabio Jones for the very first time by a Filipino magazine on travels, which is called Travel Now, which is pretty famous as well. So the interview will come out in a month and a half, because it's a bi-monthly, and I will be speaking as Fabio Jones. So something I created, it's becoming real. And only these days this can happen.
It is. You've had a split career and now a split personality.
Oh yeah, no problem about that, no problem.
So you've done that, and you also have worked in the theater and have some exciting things going on. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course I had to do something in Italy as well, because I go back there from time to time. I still have my friends, and I love the food, I love the place. And I started the equivalent of Secret Vienna in my hometown, which is now called Storie di Pesaro, Histories from Pesaro, Stories from Pesaro. And this turned into a way of everybody in the small town. There are 98,000 people, and I have about now 6,000 followers. But they all chip in with their own memories. They bring their pictures, their stories, and it's becoming a tapestry of the history of the town. And it's very relevant in a town of 98,000 when you have 6,000 followers. Is much stronger than having 100,000 in a city of 60 million like here in Manila. So everybody's talking about it. But then again, the community wanted to see a piece of the digital action into the real world. This is what people always want. Doesn't matter how much they like it online, they also want the offline. So last year we organized 8 events in 7 days, and from visiting the local synagogue, from the ancient cemetery, for lectures about the pictures of the beginning of the 1900s. We cleaned the Roman walls, so we got a community involved in cleaning from bottles and debris, actual Roman walls, which are 2,000 years old. And so we did all these kinds of activities, and people got really, really excited about the community. And so we started going into theater because there's a strong tradition. And we have started a small tradition of what we call regional historical theater. I wrote 3 plays so far. All of them are being produced right now. 2 of them were included very recently in the normal program, the normal season of a small theater in the area. And we are actually trying to produce them in the place where the action took place 200 years ago, 300 years ago. It could be a church, it could be a monument. And so we are having the theater inside theaters, but also outside. Because again, the idea is to value the city you live in, to try and have people look at your city in a different way. And it's going very well so far.
Congratulations on that progress. Your journeys, adventures, opportunities, all of that are incredible, exciting, and a lot of fun to follow, I must admit. We will definitely include the links in the show notes. For those of you listening, click on the show notes, go in, follow this guy, follow Fabio Jones, follow all of the excitement that is going on in this world. As you look back and you look at this amazing journey that you've had so far with lots of excitement left to come, but so far, is there something that you, in particular, that you really wish you'd known when you started?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Many things. But first of all, is that you can do much more than you think you can. You can win your fears. I got certified scuba diver here in the Philippines, and I am part of the generation of Jaws. So I was terrified by the idea of sharks, and I still am, but I'm working on it. And nonetheless, I was able to get certified. And it's the same thing when it comes to entrepreneurship. You can do a lot of things. You can pass a lot of obstacles, but also you don't have to be alone, because we said many times that the small entrepreneur, the micro entrepreneur is alone. But although when I was working in corporation, I was dealing with hundreds of people on a daily basis, I was alone in the end, in the sense that people would not absolutely completely share the same vision. They were doing it for the money. They were in for the money. That was it. Starting a new company from scratch, not all the time you're able to pay people. So you need to find people that are willing to work with you and invest a little bit of their time to see if we are able to make money out of it. And I thought it's going to be impossible, because I was used to pay thousands of euros for every little thing I was doing before. It is possible. You attract people if you truly believe in what you do, if what you do is attractive per se, but also if you give out for free. You have to be the first person to give out for free. This is very important. Doesn't matter what kind of business, digital business you're in. You need to create a community first before you turn them into clients, before you start monetizing. And to create a community, you have to give something. In my case, it was a sense of identity of Viennese, of people in Pesaro, and even here in Manila, where I have this other blog, Secret Manila, to tell them about their history, to be willing to sacrifice and read and research and post every day. It's not an easy stuff to do every day. And after a while, people will start writing to me and say, look, I'm a graphic designer. I would like to work for free and make a new logo for your blog. And these are things that really happen. Or I am a video maker. Why don't we go and shot a very short clip of this together with me? And of course, I would try to give them a little bit of opportunity for themselves as well. But they were in because they liked it. So what I've learned is that you can attract people to work with you for little of no money for a limited amount of time, of course. Then you have to turn into something else. But it's not impossible. And these people are the best because they are truly invested in what they do. They share your passion, and they're just not, let's go to the next paycheck, like most of the people in corporations are.
They're truly a part of your tribe. As you think about the beginning of entrepreneurship, we have so many in the audience who are either aspiring entrepreneurs or they're new or recently started, what would you say is maybe the most important characteristic for an entrepreneur to have to increase that likelihood of success?
Usually I have more questions than answers, but in this particular case, I know the answer, for me at least, but also when I observe people around me, is resilience. You have to be resilient. You're gonna find so many problems, so many difficulties, but also a lot of excitement. But it's like when you're playing a video games, you have to finish that level, you have to fight the boss, and then you can level up to the next one. And sometimes things don't go very well. Sometimes you don't feel motivated every single morning and jump out of bed like, all right, it's a new fantastic day ahead of me. Let's go and kill it. So you have to be more than enthusiastic. You have to have passion, and you have to be resilient to know that in the end, nobody will stop you. They can stop you in the short term, or you can be stopped by yourself in the short term. But if you keep going, you keep going, you keep going, of course, always bear in mind you have to eat at least twice a day. As an Italian, this is very important. But I think in the end, don't be obsessed with money in the very beginning. Be obsessed with the value you create, and also your ability to create this value in a repetitive way for every day, especially in these small companies, and they are all working with the digital world. We need to provide contents and services and ideas almost on a daily basis. Everything becomes old so fast. So you have to be able to create that new gig, that new activity, the new promotion almost every day. But at the same time, you have to be genuine and respect what you've been doing so far.
So what I hear there is be resilient, be adaptable, and connect, which is good. As you've gone through your journey, are there any particular resources that have made it easier to chase your dreams, or that you would recommend for others, whether they're books or programs or tools or anything else?
Yes. Never stop studying. Always, this never ends. You think now you have a PhD, you're done. No. Even in formal level or informal level, always trying to keep up with what's going on. So number one, classes, videos, books. I maybe I'm old style. I'm 57. I like books. So for me, reading on paper, it's still a very good source of pleasure and of improvement. Number two, try to meet with people that are different from you. This is also something that you often learn, or you often hear about it, but you never practice, because you always like to be and hang around with people that think like you. Once you are in a corporation and you are in sales, you're always with the sales rep. Or if you are in the administration, you are always with the administrators ones. But if you are on your own, you have to meet people that think differently from you, that have a very different background, and they know things that you don't know about. In my case, my weak point, I have to admit it, is the fiscal/financial element. Of course, I know how to make a profitable activity, but all the gimmicks of it, not so much. So I always need to have somebody else to help me out.
Fair enough. You mentioned books, and I believe pretty passionately that leaders are readers. Are there any particular books that jump out at you, or are you more of the philosophy that read sort of as much as you can and keep learning?
A little bit of both. For instance, I just went last week to the 40th International Book Fair of Manila, and it was paradise and hell at the same time, because there were books everywhere, and I just didn't have enough money to buy them all. For me, I would have gone home with a truck. But in the end, because my job is mostly based on creativity, I need to feed the creative part of myself. So there's always a little bit about stories that you have to read. They said you have to read 1,000 stories to write one. Well, I think you have to read 10,000 stories because you can write one. And also a little bit of books that are more technical In my case, recently I bought a book about how to be more creative in a given environment, to give yourself rules and methodology. So as I said before, I think that sometimes you can create no matter what you do. Other times you can. Other times, if you help yourself with some method, it's easier. So a little bit of both, a little bit of fun, because reading has to be fun as well. I hear and I listen to several podcasts or videos where are people like you that are suggesting books. So if I know the guy and how he thinks and he suggests a book, I tend to think he's honest. The problem I have with books is that I cannot not finish them. Once I start reading a book, even if I don't like it, I have to finish it. I feel a sense of unfulfillment. So I have to be careful before I choose, but after I chose, there was only one book in my life. I was never able, I tried 3 times. These are the satanic verses that I was never able to finish in my own life. 3 times I tried, not anymore.
I think I had the same experience with Ulysses.
Oh, wow. Yeah. 1,000 pages.
Right. It was certainly a challenge. As we begin to wrap up, one of the questions that I'd like to ask all of our guests. You're an example, whether you know this or not, whether it resonates with you or not, you are an example to our audience and certainly to me that dreams are real. How does it make you feel when others cite you as an example that really dreams are real? You're the proof of that.
It makes me feel embarrassed, first of all. Although I am obviously narcissistic, being an actor and a writer and always a storyteller, I feel embarrassed because I always feel like I'm a work in progress. So I haven't achieved anything. I don't even know what I'm going to be doing 3 years down the road, maybe 2 years down the road. Because in 2 years, my wife will be assigned to another country. So it's going to be another story. And I don't know where we're going to be. It could be Africa, it could be Australia, it could be back to Europe. So also my business will be affected by it. This is why I'm trying to build a business that regardless of where I'll be living, it still can be running. But I am so addicted to local stories that it's difficult to run it from far away. So this is my conundrum that I still have to solve. But in general, I think you have to be very, not even humble. You have to consider what you do day by day. And sometimes there are some people, and those are the ones you care the most, that you would like to shake them and say, look, you can do it. You can be happy. You can have a better life. But as they say, I think in China, you can show the horse a river, but you can make him drink. So you always have to be respectful of others. And, you know, I take it as a smile. I'm quick with words, so I can joke about it. But usually I feel embarrassed about that.
I appreciate you sharing that. I often do as well when people would share a statement like that with me. And I think for much the same reason, in that way, I believe we're both driven very similarly, that we look at all the things we have yet to do rather than pausing and stepping and looking back and saying, wow, what we've already created, it may be incredible, but we're just focused on those next steps. And I will say from an outsider's perspective that you are living what would be a lot of people's pretty incredible dream, and it's really cool to watch.
I just want to say something very quick on that. I never look back, or very seldom look back, but Facebook does it for me. So, you know, when they bring those
memories
pictures from the past to you. And so the other day, there was a picture, was 6 years old, and it was me with Paris Hilton in Milano at a fashion show. And I looked at that picture and I said, who's that guy? Apart of the fact that of course, I was a few pounds lighter, but really, it was like bringing pictures from the Mesozoic era for me. It's not that I don't know it was me, but it's so far from who I am right now that it really startled me.
I think it's exciting when we can look back and say that we've made progress toward our goals or towards becoming a different and better person, that every 5 years we look back and feel like it comes from long ago. As we wrap up, there are 5 questions the fortunate five that I ask all of our guests. This is thinking about things that we've done, thinking about things that we could do, thinking about things that might happen. And it involves a little bit of creativity and imagination. So I think it's right up your alley. Question one of these five is, what is the most exciting or adventurous thing that you've ever done? And I have to say, you are one of the very few guests that get to the top of the list of me being excited to hear this answer.
I have to say it's going to take me a while to decide which one, but I will go with the most recent. I was on the Trans-Siberian Express 2 months ago with my wife, which means taking a train from Moscow all the way to Beijing through Mongolia. And this took us 15 days, 8,100 and something kilometer. But also, we have seen how Europe can slowly turn into Asia. And that was really, really awesome because, again, this was the journey. It wasn't so much the different destinations. The cities were interesting, but was being on a train, getting to know the people, seeing outside the window the scenery changing, mingling with people that would not speak any other language that Mongolian or Chinese or Russian, and still having a great time. Bring a book. It's a good advice.
Sounds like an amazing journey and a long one, but worth it and very rich. The tapestry that you encountered, I saw the pictures and they blew me away and made me want to go get on that railway for sure. What is something that you wish you were good at but aren't yet?
Financing and fiscal issues. It's becoming more, the more money you make, the more important they become if you're an entrepreneur, or at least to find somebody I truly trust that know about these things.
Yeah, very, very good. What's the best meal or food experience that you've had? And I know you love food.
You're asking an Italian. It's like to choose between among my kids. I cannot. But I can tell you this, every time I go back to my hometown in Pesaro, I go to this restaurant that's called The Artist, L'Artista. And they have this very light sea salad, which is made of shrimps, little fish, celery, tomato, squid, with little olive oil on top and vinegar, and I feel home.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Now I'm hungry. Where is your dream travel destination? You've been all over the world. You've been to so many places. Do you still have somewhere that you say, that's my dream destination? That's where I want to go?
Well, very recently, again, with my wife, who's also an adventurer, we were discussing whether or not we should do something really crazy this time. I mean, crazier than the Trans-Siberian. We have seen an ad for the Panamericana Road, starting from Anchorage, Alaska, and going all the way down to Terra del Fuego and the South Pole. But unfortunately, this costs 52,000 euros and it takes 150 days. But the idea is still into my head. So if somebody wants to sponsor Fabio Jones, I'm game for it.
Hey, you're on your way. Fabio, that would be the heck of an adventure for Fabio Jones. And maybe the only way that you could go further is to see Fabio Jones on Mars.
I'm talking to Elon Musk.
I appreciate that. Actually, one of our previous guests, Adventure Dan Zener, he is now working on some of the Mars habitats. So who knows? Maybe there's a collaboration.
All right.
Last question. What do you believe will be the most exciting invention of the next 30 years?
It's an invention that I can't wait to see and fear at the same time. And as Star Trek would put it, is set me up, Scott. Teletransportation. That would be a whole new level of traveling. But probably will be also the end of a lot of pleasure in the travel. Because as I said time and time again, I enjoy the journey. So the idea of being immediately on your final destination, it's exciting. But also the idea of the journey is exciting to me. So I fear it and I covet it at the same time.
That is very fair. It would be a fascinating technology, particularly if it's done in the next 30 years. Fabio, I want to thank you for joining us. Your stories have not disappointed. You have been, as always, incredible. Is there a last thought or message that you would like to leave with our audience?
Yeah, never believe you are your business card. Doesn't matter what heights have you reached. If you are CEO, owner, founding member, you are Dan, you are Fabio, you are John, you are a person. And that's the only meaning you have. Don't get trapped in thinking you made it, because the secret is you will never fully make it. And I wish for every of us not ever to make it completely, in the sense to feel that you have reached the end of the journey and you have maxed out your potentials. There's always another adventure. And if I can do it, you can do it as well.
Perfect. Where can people find you online? I'm confident now that everyone who hears this will be rushing to their internet browser to find Fabio.
Well, if you want to meet Fabio Jones, you can go on Instagram to Fabio_Jones_adventure_world, or you can follow, depending where you are in the world. If you are in Vienna, Secret Vienna. If you are in Manila, Secret Manila. If you're Italian, Storia di Pesaro. But the easiest way to get in touch with me on a personal level is my personal email is F like Fabio _ my last name that you will find on this, Aromatici @hotmail.com. That's the best way, or LinkedIn.
Fantastic. I thank you so much for being here. You have been a joy. I greatly appreciate it, Fabio.
Thank you, Dan, and thanks to everybody who was so patient to be until the end with us.
Thank you for joining us on the Dreams Are Real podcast. If anything we've said has inspired you to dream bigger, live more boldly, or move closer to your ideal life, please reach out and let us know. And also be sure to share this episode with a friend. We would be honored if you would like, subscribe, or leave a review for our show on your favorite podcasting platform. And for more discussion of this episode and all things related to the Dreams Are Real podcast, and to receive your free download of Dan's Defining Your North Star training, please join our Dreams Are Real community on Facebook. Until next time, be amazing and keep crushing it.